Welcome to part 2 of the Palaeontology Iceberg. We will continue where we left off. Now before we begin, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on what you thought about the video, as it really helps out the channel. Bone Wars. The Bone Wars, also known as the Great Dinosaur Rush, was a period of intense rivalry between two of the most prominent paleontologists in American history, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope. The fierce competition took place during the late 19th century, primarily between the 1870s and 1890s, and had a profound impact on the field of paleontology, both in terms of scientific discovery and its darker aspects of rivalry and unethical practices. Marsh and Cope were both ambitious and driven scientists who shared a passion for uncovering and naming new dinosaur species. Their rivalry began in the early 1870s, fueled by professional jealousy and personal animosity. The competition between them escalated quickly, leading to a race to discover and describe the most dinosaur fossils. Both men were public in their efforts, with Marsh associated with Yale University and the Peabody Museum of Natural History, and Cope affiliated with the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. During the Bone Wars, Marsh and Cope employed large teams to excavate fossil beds across the American West, particularly in the rich deposits of the Murchison Formation in Colorado, Wyoming, and other states. They discovered and named many new species, including famous dinosaurs like Allosaurus, Stegosaurus, Diplodocus, which is discovered by Marsh, and Camptosaurus, discovered by Cope. In total, the two men collectively discovered and named over 120 species of dinosaurs, contributing enormously to the knowledge of prehistoric life. However, the Bone Wars were not just about scientific achievement. The rivalry was marked by underhanded tactics, including bribery, theft, and even the destruction of fossils to prevent the other from studying them. Both Marsh and Cope were known to rush their findings into publication, sometimes with incomplete or inaccurate descriptions, in order to claim priority over each other. This often led to errors in the scientific record, many of which took decades to correct. The intensity of the Bone Wars took a toll on both men. Cope, who was less financially stable, eventually faced bankruptcy and health issues, while Marsh, who had more resources, continued his work but became increasingly isolated. By the time of their deaths, Cope in 1897 and Marsh in 1899, their bitter feud had left a lasting legacy on the field of paleontology. Australopithecus. Australopithecus is a genus of early hominids that played a crucial role in human evolution. These primates lived in Africa during the Pliocene and early Pleistocene epochs, approximately 4.2 to 1.9 million years ago. The genus name Australopithecus means southern ape, reflecting its initial discovery in South Africa. The first fossil of Australopithecus was discovered in 1924 by Raymond Dart, who identified a skull of a young child at a limestone quarry in Tong, South Africa. This specimen, known as the Tong child, was classified as Australopithecus africanus, and marked a significant milestone in paleoanthropology. Dart's discoveries suggested that bipedalism, or walking on two legs, preceded the development of a larger brain, which challenged the prevailing view that brain size was the first distinguishing characteristic of human ancestors. Several species of Australopithecus have been identified, with Australopithecus afarensis being one of the most famous. A. afarensis includes the iconic Lucy, a remarkably complete skeleton discovered in Ethiopia in 1974, which provided critical insights into the anatomy and lifestyle of early hominins. Lucy's species displayed a combination of human-like and ape-like traits. They were bipedal yet had small brains and large cheek teeth, suited for a diet that included tough vegetation. Australopithecus species were widespread across eastern and southern Africa, with fossil evidence indicating that they occupied diverse environments ranging from forests to savannas. These early hominins were likely omnivorous, with diets that included fruits, nuts, seeds, and possibly small animals. The evolutionary significance of Australopithecus lies in its role as a precursor to the genus Homo, from which modern humans evolved. While Australopithecus itself did not survive beyond 2 million years ago, its descendants, particularly through species like Homo habilis, carried forward the adaptations that would eventually lead to modern humans. Stegosaurus in Ta Prohm Temple. The Stegosaurus carving at the Ta Prohm Temple in Cambodia has sparked significant debate and intrigue since it was first highlighted in the 1990s. The temple, built in the late 12th century during the reign of Khmer Empire, features a bas relief that some claim depicts a Stegosaurus, a dinosaur that lived millions of years ago. This supposed depiction has led to a flurry of speculation, particularly among fringe theorists and creationists, who suggest it might indicate that humans and dinosaurs coexisted. However, the majority of scholars and scientists are skeptical of this interpretation. The plates on the back of the creature in the carving are likely stylized lotus leaves or other ornamental features common in Khmer art, rather than the actual representations of dinosaurian plates. The animal's head, which is more similar of that of a rhinoceros or a boar, and the surrounding foliage further suggests that the carving might depict a more familiar, local animal rather than a Stegosaurus. Some theories even propose that the carving might be a modern addition or alteration, possibly made as a joke or for tourism purposes, given that the temple is a popular site for filmmakers and even tourists. There is also the possibility that the carving has been mistakenly or intentionally misinterpreted to fit into narratives that support the coexistence of humans and dinosaurs, a view that lacks credible scientific evidence. Too big to walk. The concept of dinosaurs being too big to walk explores the challenges faced by some of the largest land animals that ever existed, particularly the massive sauropods such as the Brachiosaurus and Diplodocus. These dinosaurs were characterized by their enormous size, with some species weighing as much as 50 tons or more. The debate centers on whether these giant creatures were truly capable of supporting their massive bodies on land, or if they required the buoyancy of water to help bear their weight. The traditional view, supported by much of the fossil evidence and biomechanical studies, suggests that these dinosaurs were well adapted to life on land. Their bones, muscles, and overall body structure were designed to support their massive size, allowing them to walk on land despite their immense weight. For example, the thick pillar-like legs on sauropods were well suited to bear the heavy loads, much like the columns of a large building. However, in the book Too Big to Walk, The New Science of Dinosaurs, author Brian J. Ford challenges the conventional view by proposing that these dinosaurs may have been more aquatic than previously thought. Ford argues that the sheer size of these creatures, along with certain anatomical features, suggest they would have needed the support of water to move effectively, claiming that it would have been nearly impossible for them to walk on land without risking severe injury or even collapse due to their weight. Ford's controversial hypothesis has sparked significant debate within the paleontological community. Critics argue that his theories are speculative and not well supported by the fossil record or biomechanical studies, which show that these dinosaurs were indeed capable of terrestrial locomotion. The prevailing scientific consensus remains that while challenging, these massive creatures were adapted to life on land, with their bodies evolving specific features that allowed them to walk and graze in prehistoric landscapes. Whales evolved from land. Whales are one of the most fascinating examples of evolutionary transition. As they evolved from land-dwelling mammals into the fully aquatic giants we see today, this transformation began around 50 million years ago during the Eocene epoch, with early ancestors like Pachycetus, which resembled terrestrial mammals more than modern whales. These early whales, known as archaeocets, lived primarily on land but had started to spend more time in water, feeding and wading in shallow coastal environments. As time progressed, species like Ambulocetus, the walking whale, exhibited further adaptations to an aquatic lifestyle, such as more robust limbs for swimming, though they were still capable of moving on land. This gradual shift continued with species like Rhodocetus and Myacetus, which spent more time in the water and began developing traits like a streamlined body and reduced limbs better suited for swimming. The most dramatic changes occurred with the Basilosauridae, such as Basilosaurus and Dorudon, which were fully aquatic and no longer able to live on land. These early whales had elongated bodies, powerful tails, and vestigial hind limbs, which would eventually disappear in modern whales. Over millions of years, the descendants of these ancient whales continued to evolve, leading to the diverse group of cetaceans that include today's baleen and toothed whales. This transition from land to sea is one of the best documented examples of macroevolution in the fossil record, illustrating how natural selection and environmental pressures can drive significant changes in the anatomy and behavior of a species. Spinosaurus depictions. Spinosaurus has one of the most fascinating and evolving depictions in the history of paleontology. Initially discovered in 1912 by German paleontologist Ernest Stromer, the original Spinosaurus fossils painted the picture of a large, bipedal theropod with distinctive spines along its back, leading to the iconic image of a sail-backed dinosaur. Unfortunately, these fossils were destroyed during World War II, leaving paleontologists with only Stromer's descriptions and sketches for several decades. For much of the 20th century, Spinosaurs were constructed similarly to other large theropods, like Tyrannosaurus rex, depicted as a land-based, predatory dinosaur with a somewhat conventional appearance, aside from its sail. However, the discovery of related species like Baryonyx in the 1980s, which had a crocodile-like snout and fish remains in its stomach, began to shift scientific perspectives, suggesting that Spinosaurus might have had more in common with aquatic animals than previously thought. The most dramatic shift in Spinosaurus depictions came in 2014, when a team led by Nizar Ibrahim presented a new fossil evidence suggesting that Spinosaurus was likely semi-aquatic. Their reconstruction, which included a combination of new and old fossil material and a body structure that suggested it spent a significant amount of time in the water, perhaps even being capable of quadrupedal movement when on land. This depiction was groundbreaking and controversial. Some paleontologists criticized the reconstruction, questioning the validity of the fossil evidence and the methods used to piece together the dinosaur's anatomy. Despite these debates, further studies in 2020 reinforced the idea that Spinosaurus was uniquely adapted for an aquatic lifestyle, featuring a tail well suited for swimming, much like a paddle. Today, the Spinosaurus is depicted as an aquatic predator, likely spending much of its time in rivers and coastal environments, hunting fish and other aquatic prey. Convergent Evolution. Convergent evolution is a fascinating process in which different species, often unrelated and separated by vast periods of time or geographic distances, independently evolve similar traits or features in response to similar environmental pressures or ecological niches. This phenomenon results in analogous structures, which perform similar functions but do not derive from a common ancestor, distinguishing them from homologous structures that share a common origin. One of the classic examples of convergent evolution is the development of flight in various animal groups, such as birds, bats, and insects. Although these groups are not closely related, they each evolved wings independently to exploit the advantages of aerial mobility. The wings of birds are modified forelimbs covered in feathers, while bats' wings are extensions of their fingers, and insects have wings that are entirely different in structure from those of the vertebrates. Despite these differences, all these species converged on the same solution to the challenge of flight. Another striking example is the similarity between dolphins and an extinct Ichthyosaurus. Dolphins are modern marine mammals, while Ichthyosaurus were reptiles that lived during the Mesozoic era. Despite being separated by millions of years and belonging to different classes of animals, both evolved streamlined fish-like bodies, flippers, and elongated snouts to thrive in aquatic environments. Convergent evolution is not limited to animals. Plants also exhibit this phenomenon. For example, C4 photosynthesis, a more efficient way of capturing carbon dioxide in hot, dry environments, has evolved independently in several plant families, allowing these plants to survive in similar climates despite their different evolutionary backgrounds. Tier 3. Fake fossils. Fossil fuels have been a persistent issue in paleontology, often driven by the potential for financial gain, academic prestige, or simply as elaborate pranks. These fraudulent fossils can range from minor alterations such as enhanced real fossils with fake parts, to completely fabricated specimens designed to deceive collectors and scientists alike. One of the most famous historical examples is the Piltdown Man, a supposed missing link between apes and humans that was later revealed to be a combination of human and orangutan bones, deliberately aged to look ancient. This hoax misled the scientific community for decades. In the fossil trade, particularly in regions like China, where numerous important discoveries have been made, there is a significant market for fossils, which has unfortunately led to a rise in forgeries. These fake fossils can be composed of parts from different species, or even be entirely sculpted from rock or other materials to mimic genuine fossils. One infamous case involved the so-called Archaeoraptor, which was heralded as a transitional fossil between dinosaurs and birds, but later turned out to be a composite of different fossils. Detection of these fakes typically involves a combination of visual inspection, chemical analysis, and advanced imaging techniques like CT scanning. These methods can reveal inconsistencies in the fossil structure, composition, or the surrounding matrix that would not occur naturally. Despite these challenges, the continued development of forensic techniques in paleontology has made it increasingly difficult for fake fossils to go undetected for long. Crystal Palace Dinosaurs. The Crystal Palace dinosaurs are a remarkable set of sculptures located in Crystal Palace Park, London, created in the mid-19th century by sculptor Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins, under the direction of the pioneering paleontologist Sir Richard Owen. Unveiled in 1854, these sculptures were the world's first attempt to reconstruct and present dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures as life-size models based on fossil evidence. At the time, paleontology was still a nascent science, and many of the reconstructions were based on incomplete or misunderstood fossils. For instance, the famous Iguanodon sculpture was depicted as a squat, four-legged animal with a horn on its nose, an interpretation that was later proven incorrect when further fossil discoveries revealed that the horn was actually a thumb spike and that the Iguanodon was primarily bipedal. Despite the scientific inaccuracies that are now apparent, the Crystal Palace dinosaurs were a groundbreaking achievement in both science and art. They brought the ancient world to life for the Victorian public, offering them a tangible glimpse into a time when dinosaurs roamed the earth. These sculptures played a critical role in shaping early public perceptions of dinosaurs and prehistoric life, influencing everything from academic discourse to popular culture. Over time, the sculptures fell into disrepair, but were saved from total neglect by restoration efforts that began in the mid-20th century and continue to this day. These efforts have ensured that the Crystal Palace dinosaurs remain an iconic part of London's cultural and historical heritage, drawing visitors and inspiring fascination with the prehistoric past. Ancient Aliens Theory. The Ancient Aliens Theory posits that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in antiquity and had a profound influence on the development of human civilizations. Proponents of this theory often cite various ancient texts, artifacts, and architectural marvels as evidence of alien intervention. For instance, structures like pyramids of Giza, Stonehenge, and the Nazca Lines are frequently highlighted as too advanced for their time, suggesting that ancient humans might have received help from otherworldly visitors. The theory gained significant popularity through the work of authors like Erich von Däniken, who argued that many ancient myths and religious texts could be interpreted as descriptions of alien encounter. His book, Chariots of the Gods, published in 1968, became a bestseller and sparked widespread interest in the idea that aliens played a role in shaping human history. However, the ancient aliens theory has been widely criticized by scholars, archaeologists, and historians. Critics argue that it underestimates human ingenuity and overlooks the historical and cultural context in which these ancient achievements were made. Moreover, some have pointed out that the theory often perpetuates a form of cultural bias, particularly when it questions the abilities of non-Western civilizations to create their own monumental structures without external help. The theory has also been associated with pseudoscience, as it frequently relies on speculative interpretations and lacks empirical evidence. La Brea Tar Pits. The La Brea Tar Pits in Los Angeles are one of the most significant paleontological sites in the world, offering a unique window into the past, particularly the Pleistocene epoch. The tar pits, which are actually natural asphalt seeps, have been trapping and preserving the remains of animals for tens of thousands of years. These animals, including mammoths, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and numerous other species, became stuck in the sticky tar where their remains were exceptionally well preserved. The site was first scientifically recognized in the early 20th century, with formal excavations beginning around 1901. Over the decades, these excavations have uncovered an extraordinary number of fossils, over 3.5 million specimens, making it one of the richest sources of Ice Age fossils in the world. The high concentration of carnivores at the site, such as saber-toothed cats and dire wolves, suggests that these predators were often drawn to the pits by distress calls of trapped prey only to become trapped themselves. that La Brea tar pits are not just a site of historical importance, but also a center for ongoing scientific research. The George C. Page Museum, established in 1977, houses many of the fossils discovered at the tar pits and offers visitors a chance to see the ongoing work of paleontologists as they study and prepare fossils. Modern scientific techniques such as CT scanning have allowed researchers to uncover new insights about the lives of these ancient animals, including evidence suggesting of social behaviors in species like the saber-toothed cat. Drepanosaurus. Drepanosaurus is a fascinating and enigmatic reptile from the late Triassic period, approximately 212 million years ago. The small 1 to 2 foot long reptile is part of the extinct group known as Drepanosaurus, which exhibited a unique set of anatomical adaptations that set them apart from other reptiles of their time. One of the most remarkable features of Drepanosaurus is its highly specialized forelimb. Unlike most tetrapods, where the radius and ulna run parallel to each other, Drepanosaurus had a modified ulna that was flattened and expanded, extending perpendicularly to the radius. This unusual limb structure culminated in an enormous claw on the second digit of its forelimb, which was likely used for powerful digging. Scientists believe that Drepanosaurus used this claw to rip apart tree bark and insect nests, much like modern anteaters. In addition to its unique forelimb, Drepanosaurus had also had grasping feet and a tail with a claw-like structure, suggesting that it was well adapted to an arboreal lifestyle. These adaptations allowed it to fulfill a specialized ecological role that is rarely seen in the fossil record, making Drepanosaurus an excellent example of the diverse evolutionary experiments that occurred during the Triassic period. Althalus. Althalus is a notable name in paleontological history, primarily because it was the first ceratocid dinosaur ever described, even before the discovery of the more famous Triceratops. Named by the American paleontologist Edward Drinker Cope in 1872, Althalus means Great Wanderer, reflecting the awe it inspired when its fossil were first unearthed in Wyoming's Lance Formation. The fossil discovered consisted primarily of hip bones, vertebrae, and ribs, which led Cope to initially identify Althalus as a large herbivorous dinosaur. At the time of its discovery, Althalus was considered the largest land animal known, estimated to have been around 30 feet long and weighing about 6 tons. Its large size and fragmentary remains made it difficult to classify, and as paleontology advanced, it became increasingly clear that Althalus might not represent a distinct genus. Today, Althalus is often regarded as a nomen dubium, meaning that the fossil evidence is too incomplete to confidently assign it to a specific genus. Some paleontologists suggest that the remains attributed to Althalus might actually belong to a species of Triceratops, given the similarities in the Ceratopsid family. Despite this, Althalus has left a lasting legacy, particularly in popular culture, where it was famously depicted in Charles R. Knight's illustrations and later in the 1925 film adaptation of The Lost World. Dinokyus. Dinokyus is a fascinating example of how paleontological interpretations can evolve dramatically over time. Initially discovered in 1965, this dinosaur was known only from its enormous, mysterious arms, leading scientists to imagine it as a fearsome predator. The name Dinokyus translates to terrible hand, reflecting the initial belief that these limbs belonged to a giant carnivorous dinosaur similar in size and ferocity to Tyrannosaurus rex. For nearly 5 decades, the true nature of Dinokyus remained a mystery, fueling a variety of speculative reconstructions. Early depictions often imagined it as a monstrous predator, with some suggesting it could have been an apex predator of its ecosystem. This image persisted until more complete fossils were discovered and studied in the early 2010s, which drastically changed our understanding of this enigmatic dinosaur. The new fossils reveal that Dinokyus was not a carnivorous giant, but rather a massive, humpbacked ornithomimosaur, a group of dinosaurs more commonly known as ostrich mimics, standing about 15 feet tall and stretching over 30 feet in length. Dinokyus had a duckbill-like skull, a large pot-bellied body, and a snail-like structure along its back formed by elongated vertebrae. It likely had a mixed diet, feeding on both plants and small aquatic creatures, which it may have foraged in shallow waters with its specialized claws. This unexpected transformation from a terrifying predator to a slow-moving semi-aquatic omnivore illustrates how paleontology is a constantly evolving science. Ropin. The Ropin is a cryptid allegedly residing in the remote areas of Papua New Guinea and surrounding islands, often described as a large, winged creature resembling a pterosaur, a type of prehistoric flying reptile. The name Ropin translates to demon flyer in the local languages, and according to local folklore, it is a nocturnal creature with leathery wings, a long tail, and a beak. One of its most distinctive features is its reported bioluminescence, which some believe it uses to attract fish or other prey. Sightings of the Ropin date back to the mid-20th century, particularly after World War II, when Western missionaries and soldiers reported encounters with the creature. Despite numerous expeditions and extensive research by cryptozoologists, there is no scientific evidence to support the existence of the Ropin. Most mainstream scientists and skeptics argue that the sightings were likely misidentifications of known animals, such as large bats or birds, like the frigate bird, which can appear unusual in low light conditions. The Ropin has been a subject of significant debate within the cryptozoology community. Some researchers driven by a creationist agenda have linked the Ropin to the idea of living pterosaurs, creatures thought to have gone extinct millions of years ago. However, these claims are widely disputed, and no credible fossil evidence supports the notion that any pterosaurs survived past the Cretaceous period. Fire-breathing Parasaurolophus. The idea of a fire-breathing Parasaurolophus originates from a speculative and controversial concept often linked to young Earth creationist literature. This theory suggests the unique cranial crest of Parasaurolophus, a genus of duck-billed dinosaurs, might have functioned similarly to the mythical fire-breathing dragons of legend. The theory posits that this dinosaur could have used its crest to mix chemicals like methane or hydrogen peroxide to create a combustible reaction, thereby enabling it to expel fire or a fiery substance. However, there is no credible scientific evidence to support this claim. The crest of Parasaurolophus is understood to have played a role in vocalization and possibly visual display, rather than in any form of pyrotechnic defense. Studies have shown that the crest structure, which is part of its respiratory system, lacks any anatomical features that could produce or expel fire. The theory of a fire-breathing Parasaurolophus remains in the realm of speculative fiction rather than accepted science, often propagated in creationist narratives without scientific backing. This idea persists more in cultural and mythological discussions rather than serious paleontological studies, and is typically cited alongside other fantastical interpretations of ancient creatures in an attempt to align them with dragon legends found in various cultures. Gerty the Dinosaur. Gerty the Dinosaur is a landmark in the history of animation, created by Winsor McCay in 1914. It is widely regarded as the first animated film to feature a character with a distinct personality, and it played a crucial role in the evolution of animation as an art form. McCay, who was already known for his work in comic strips, introduced Gerty as a part of his vaudeville act, where he would interact with the animated dinosaur on screen, creating a groundbreaking blend of live action and animation. The film was created using over 10,000 hand-drawn frames, a monumental effort at the time. McCay introduced several innovative techniques during the production of Gerty, including keyframe animation, where the primary poses or actions were drawn first, and then intervening frames were filled in later. This method allowed for more fluid and realistic motion, setting a new standard for animation quality. Gerty herself was depicted as a playful, obedient, yet sometimes rebellious dinosaur, capable of expressing emotions that resonated with the audience. She was more than just a collection of moving images. She was a character that audiences could connect with, which was unprecedented at the time. This achievement laid the foundation for the development of character animation, influencing further generations of animators, including Walt Disney. Hollow Earth. The hollow Earth theory is a concept that proposes the Earth is entirely hollow or contains substantial interior spaces, possibly inhabited by advanced civilizations. This idea has a long and varied history, originating in ancient mythology and folklore, where subterranean realms were often depicted as places of origin, afterlife, or mystical lands. These ideas were later expanded upon in the 17th century by scientists like Edmund Halley, We've suggested that the Earth consists of concentric shells with separate atmospheres, each possibly inhabited by different life forms. The theory gained more attention in the early 19th century when John Cleves Sims Jr., an academic trader, fervently promoted the idea that the Earth had large openings at the poles, which he believed led to a habitable inner world. Despite his enthusiasm and attempts to secure funding for an expedition, Sims' theories were widely ridiculed, though they inspired various literacy works, including those by Jules Verne and Edgar Allan Poe. In the 20th century, the hollow earth theory found a place in fringe science and conspiracy theories, often linked to ideas about UFOs and secret subterranean civilizations. Some proponents even claimed that notable historical figures like Admiral Richard Byrd had witnessed or accessed these inner realms during polar expeditions, although such claims are not supported by credible evidence. First complex organism. The first complex organisms emerged during the Ediacaran period, approximately 635 to 541 million years ago. This period is significant because it marks the first appearance of multicellular life forms that were large enough to be seen without a microscope, preceding the more well-known Cambrian explosion. These early complex organisms were often referred to as the Ediacaran biota, including a variety of enigmatic life forms with soft bodies, such as Dickinsonia, Charnia, and Fractophuses. These organisms varied in shape and size, with some resembling modern-day jellyfish, while others took on more frond-like or disc-like shape forms. The fossils of these organisms have been found worldwide, indicating that they were widespread and ecologically significant during this period. One of the most interesting aspects of the Ediacaran biota is the ongoing debate among scientists regarding their classification. Some researchers believe these organisms were early forms of mammals, while others argue they represent a distinct, extinct branch of life known as Bendobionta, which may have had no direct descendants. The debate is fueled by the unique and often ambiguous characteristics of these fossils, which do not always fit neatly into modern taxonomic categories. The study of Ediacaran fossils has provided critical insights into the early evolution of complex life on Earth. These organisms are thought to have lived in marine environments, with many of them anchored to the seafloor. Their appearance set the stage for the rapid diversification of life that would follow in the Cambrian period, making the Ediacaran biota an essential chapter in the story of life on Earth. Borealopela. Borealopela Mark-Michelli is one of the most remarkable dinosaur discoveries of the 21st century, known for its extraordinary preservation. This armored dinosaur, a member of Nodosauridae family, lived approximately 110 to 112 million years ago during the early Cretaceous period in what is now known as Alberta, Canada. The only known specimen was discovered in 2011 during the mining operations near Fort McMurray and has been described as the best preserved armored dinosaur ever found. The fossil is so well preserved that it includes not only the bones but also the skin, scales, and even the remnants of its last meal. This level of preservation is rare, especially for large dinosaurs, and was made possible because the dinosaur's body was quickly buried in marine sediments after being washed out to sea, likely during a flood. This rapid burial in an ancient seabed, combined with the formation of a siderite concentration around the carcass, protected it from scavengers and the usual decay processes, preserving it in a near life-like state. Borealopela was about 5.5 meters long and heavily armored, with a body covered in rows of osteoderms and long pointed spines projecting from its shoulders. Despite its size and armor, Borealopela exhibited camouflage patterns, such as countershading, which suggests that it faced significant predation pressure even from large carnivorous dinosaurs of its time. This discovery has provided invaluable insights into the life of armored dinosaurs, including their diet, which primarily consisted of ferns, as well as the environmental conditions of the early Cretaceous. The fossil also offers a rare glimpse into the soft tissue anatomy of these prehistoric creatures, making Borealopela one of the most significant paleontological finds in recent history. Armodilosocus. Armodilosocus aurudae is a fascinating example of evolutionary diversity among crocodilomorphs, particularly within the Spinosauridae family. Discovered in the Barão Basin of Brazil and described in 2009, this genus lived during the late Cretaceous period around 70 million years ago. What makes the Armodilosocus particularly interesting is its unique combination of features that seem to draw from both reptilian and mammalian characteristics, an unusual blend for a crocodiliform. Armodilosocus was about 2 meters long and weighed approximately 120 kilograms. Its most distinctive feature was its heavy armor, which was composed of flexible bands of osteoderms covering its back, much like the armor of a modern armadillo, hence its name, which means armadillo crocodile. This armor provided it with protection against predators, which were likely abundant in its environment, including large theropods and other crocodiliforms. Another notable aspect of Armodilosocus is its teeth and jaws, which were more adapted for an omnivorous diet, including plants and small animals, rather than the sharp, flesh-tearing teeth seen in other crocodiliforms. This, combined with its possible burrowing habits suggested by its limb structure, indicates that Armodilosocus had a terrestrial lifestyle, differing from the semi-aquatic habits of modern crocodiles. Bringing dinosaurs back from a chicken egg. The idea of bringing dinosaurs back from a chicken egg stems from ongoing research in evolutionary biology, where scientists are attempting to reverse engineer birds like chickens to express ancestral dinosaur traits. This concept is based on the fact that birds are the living descendants of theropod dinosaurs, and many of their ancient genetic traits are still embedded within their DNA. One of the most prominent experiments in this field involved altering the development of chicken embryos to produce dinosaur-like features. For example, researchers have managed to manipulate specific genes to create chicken embryos with snouts resembling those of their dinosaur ancestors, rather than the typical bird beak. These experiments focus on understanding how certain anatomical features evolved and how they can be reversed or modified. However, these embryos are not intended to be hatched. The experiments are conducted to explore evolutionary processes rather than to create living dino chickens. The research is part of a broader effort to understand the genetic changes that occurred during the transition from dinosaurs to birds. By identifying and modifying the genes responsible for bird-specific traits, scientists hope to learn more about how these changes influenced the evolution of modern birds from their prehistoric ancestors. The work has sparked significant ethical and scientific discussions, particularly around the implications of such genetic manipulation and the boundaries of what should be attempted in the lab. Tier 4. Roemer's Gap. Roemer's Gap refers to a puzzling 15 million year period in the fossil record, approximately 360 to 345 million years ago, during the early Carboniferous period, where there is a notable scarcity of tetrapod fossils. This gap in the record has posed significant challenges for paleontologists trying to piece together the evolution of early land-dwelling vertebrates, especially the transition from aquatic life to terrestrial ecosystems. The gap was first identified by the American paleontologist Alfred Roemer in the 1950s. He noted that while there were plenty of fish fossils from the preceding Devonian period, and more advanced tetrapod fossils from after the gap, fossils from this critical transitional period were mysteriously absent. This absence led to various theories, including the possibility that environmental factors such as low oxygen levels may have delayed the diversification of land animals during this time. However, more recent discoveries, particularly in Scotland and Nova Scotia, have started to fill in this gap. Fossils unearthed from sites like the Bournemouth and Blue Beach formations have revealed early tetrapods and other organisms that provide valuable insights into how life adapted to terrestrial environments during this previously poorly understood period. These findings suggest that tetrapods were more diverse and widespread during Roemer's Gap than previously thought, challenging earlier assumptions about the pace and nature of this evolutionary transition. The Sahara used to be green. The Sahara Desert, known today as one of the most arid places on Earth, was a once lush green landscape teeming with life. Around 10,500 years ago, a dramatic shift in climate caused monsoon rains to sweep across what is now the Sahara, transforming the barren desert into a vibrant ecosystem filled with rivers, lakes, and vegetation. This period, known as the After-Humid period, spanned from roughly 11.5 to 5.5 thousand years ago, and was driven by changes in Earth's orbital patterns, particularly a wobble known as precession, which altered the intensity of seasonal monsoons. These changes in climate were so significant that they turned the vast desert into savannas and woodlands, supporting a wide array of life forms. During this time, the Sahara was home to a rich array of animals, including elephants, giraffes, hippos, and crocodiles. The lands and rivers of the region supported large fish like Nile perch, and evidence suggests that prehistoric humans thrived here as well. Archaeological findings such as those from the Gobero site in Niger revealed that human populations in the Sahara during this green phase were not only widespread, but also culturally rich. These ancient people left behind intricate pottery, tools, and even skeletal remains that provide insight into their diet and lifestyle. Some communities seem to have relied heavily on fishing and hunting large game, as indicated by their robust physiques, while others showed signs of a more settled, less strenuous way of life, possibly due to advancements in hunting techniques and tool use. Sahara's green phase also played a crucial role in the migration of species, including early humans out of Africa. The vegetation and water sources created corridors that facilitated the movement of animals and people across the continent and beyond. However, this verdant era was not permanent. Around 5,500 years ago, the monsoon rains began to retreat, and the Sahara gradually returned to its current arid state. The drying up of the lakes and rivers forced human populations to migrate once again, leading to the reoccupation of the Nile Valley and the eventual rise of ancient Egyptian civilization. Mammoths lived in the same age as ancient Egypt. It's astonishing to realize that woolly mammoths, iconic creatures of the Ice Age, were still walking the earth during the time of ancient Egypt. While most mammoths went extinct around 10,000 years ago due to a combination of climate change and human hunting, a small population managed to survive on Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean until about 1650 BCE. This period corresponds to the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, where pharaohs like Senusret III ruled and monumental projects were underway along the Nile. The survival of these mammoths on Wrangel Island was largely due to their isolation, which protected them from the drastic climate changes and human activities that wiped out the other populations. The island, while harsh and cold, provided a stable environment where mammoths could continue to exist. Fossil evidence from Wrangel Island shows that these mammoths were smaller than their mainland relatives, a phenomenon known as insular dwarfism, likely due to limited food resources and the confined space of the island. Genetic studies have revealed that as the population of Wrangel Island dwindled, it suffered from a significant reduction in genetic diversity, leading to inbreeding and the accumulation of harmful mutations. These factors, combined with environmental changes, eventually led to the extinction of this last population of mammoths around 1650 BCE. The genetic health of these mammoths deteriorated in their final millennia, leaving them vulnerable to even minor environmental fluctuations. Speckles the Tarbosaurus. Speckles the Tarbosaurus is a character from a South Korean animated film series known as Dino King, which brings to life a narrative set during the late Cretaceous period around 70 million years ago. The film focuses on the life of a young Tarbosaurus, a close relative of the more famous Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it portrays his journey from childhood to adulthood in a harsh, prehistoric world. Tarbosaurus, like its cinematic counterpart Speckles, was a large theropod dinosaur that lived in what is now Mongolia. With an estimated length of up to 40 feet and a weight of nearly 5 tons, Tarbosaurus was one of the apex predators of its time, dominating the ecosystems of late Cretaceous Asia. Its physical features were similar to those of T-Rex, with a massive skull, powerful jaws, and sharp serrated teeth, designed for crushing bone and tearing flesh. However, Tarbosaurus had a slightly more slender build and longer legs, possibly making it more adapted to running. The story of Speckles is not only a tale of survival, but also a reflection of the life challenges faced by a real Tarbosaurus. In the film, Speckles faces various adversaries, including other predatory dinosaurs and environmental changes, which mirror the natural competition and environmental pressures that would have influenced the evolution and survival of species like Tarbosaurus. The depiction of these dinosaurs in the film, while dramatized for entertainment, is rooted in paleontological research that suggests life for these massive creatures was brutal and often short, dominated by the constant struggle for food, territory, and survival. The next ice age was delayed. The delay of the next ice age is a significant shift in Earth's natural climate cycles, primarily influenced by human activities. Earth's climate has naturally oscillated between glacial periods, characterized by extensive ice coverage, and interglacial periods, which are warmer phases like the current Holocene epoch. These cycles are driven by Milankovitch cycles, variations in Earth's orbit, axial tilt, and precession, which influence the distribution of solar energy received by the planet. Typically, these cycles would predict a gradual cooling trend leading to the onset of another ice age. However, this natural progression has been disrupted. The Industrial Revolution, beginning in the 18th century, marked a turning point in Earth's climate history. Human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and natural gas, have significantly increased the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, CO2 and methane, and other greenhouse gases trap heat, preventing it from escaping into space and thus warming the planet. This anthropogenic warming effect has not only offset the natural cooling that would lead to a glacial period, but has also reversed it, causing global temperatures to rise instead of fall. Scientific studies suggest that under natural conditions, Earth might have already been entering the early stages of the next glaciation. For example, a study published in Nature in 2016 indicated that without the significant rise in CO2 levels due to human activities, the current interglacial period might have ended within the next 1500 years, ushering in a new ice age. Instead, the atmospheric CO2 levels have now reached concentrations not seen in millions of years, effectively delaying the onset of glaciation by tens of thousands of years. This delay has profound implications for both the environment and life on Earth. The extended interglacial period allows for the continued stability of ecosystems that might otherwise have been disrupted by advancing ice sheets. However, the rapid warming driven by greenhouse gas emissions poses severe challenges for many species, which may not be able to adapt quickly enough to the challenging conditions. This unprecedented rate of climate change could lead to mass extinctions, shifts in ecosystems, and significant challenges for human societies. The Great Dying. The Great Dying, also known as the Permian-Triassic extinction event, stands as the most severe mass extinction in Earth's history, occurring around 252 million years ago. This catastrophic event wiped out approximately 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species, drastically altering the course of life on the planet. The causes of this mass extinction are complex and multifaceted, involving a combination of volcanic activity, climate change, and possibly methane release from oceanic hydrates. One of the primary drivers of the Great Dying is believed to be the massive volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia, known as the Siberian Traps. These eruptions released vast amounts of lava along with huge quantities of carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. The CO2 caused a significant greenhouse event, leading to global warming, while SO2 contributed to acid rain, which would have devastated terrestrial and marine ecosystems. The oceans, already suffering from the warming climate, experienced a decrease in oxygen levels, leading to widespread anoxia, an environment where oxygen is depleted, making it uninhabitable for most marine life. Another contributing factor may have been the release of methane from undersea methane hydrates, triggered by the warming oceans. Methane is a potent greenhouse gas, and its sudden release could have accelerated global warming, further destabilizing ecosystems. This combination of factors created a hostile environment where only a few species could survive, leading to the collapse of ecosystems both on land and in the oceans. All Yesterdays. All Yesterdays, unique and speculative views of dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals, is a groundbreaking book published in 2012 by paleontologists John Conway, C.M. Kosman, and Darren Naish. The book presents a thought-provoking exploration of how dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures might have actually looked, contrasting with traditional depictions that are often based on limited fossil evidence. The authors argue that many popular representations of dinosaurs are overly influenced by modern animals, leading to potentially inaccurate reconstructions. The central premise of All Yesterdays is that much of what we think we know about the appearance and behavior of dinosaurs is speculative. The authors encourage readers to imagine these ancient animals with soft tissue adaptations, feathers, fat, or even unusual skin textures that might not be preserved in the fossil record. For example, while many traditional depictions of dinosaurs show them as sleek, muscular creatures, the book suggests they might have had more varied body shapes, with some species potentially being much bulkier or even having features like humps or extra skin folds. The book also emphasizes the idea that dinosaurs, like modern animals, would have exhibited a wide range of behaviors, some of which might seem strange or unexpected to us today. By encouraging the speculative approach, All Yesterdays invites a more imaginative and less rigid understanding of prehistoric life, challenging the often static and uniform images that dominate popular culture. Preserved dinosaur embryo. The discovery of preserved dinosaur embryos provides an extraordinary window into the early stages of dinosaur development, offering insights that were previously unimaginable. One of the most famous examples is the baby yin, a perfectly preserved dinosaur embryo found inside a fossilized egg in southern China, estimated to be around 66 to 72 million years old. This embryo, identified as an Oviraptorosaur, a group of feathered theropods closely related to birds, was found in a curled up position, remarkably similar to the posture of late-stage bird embryos today. This find has bolstered the evolutionary connection between birds and dinosaurs, showing that behaviors associated with modern avian species were already present in their dinosaur ancestors. The preservation of such embryos is incredibly rare, often occurring through a process known as permineralization, where the original organic material is gradually replaced by minerals, preserving the fine details of the embryo's structure. In some cases, these fossils are so well preserved that the researchers can study not just the bones, but also impressions of soft tissues including muscles, skin, and even possible feather structures. This level of detail allows scientists to reconstruct the development of these embryos, shedding light on how dinosaur embryos grew and developed in their eggs. For example, studies of the baby yin embryo have revealed critical details about the timing and sequence of bone formation, the development of claws and beaks, and even how these creatures might have moved inside their eggs as they prepared to hatch. Such detailed embryonic fossils also provide clues about the reproductive strategies of dinosaurs, including how they might have incubated their eggs and what the embryonic posture indicates about their hatching behavior. The presence of a tucking posture where the head is positioned below the body with the feet on either side and the back curved suggests that this behavior, crucial for hatching, was already present in dinosaurs and later inherited by birds. Homo erectus. Homo erectus is one of the most significant early human species, playing a crucial role in the evolution of modern humans. Appearing around 1.9 million years ago, Homo erectus was the first human ancestor to exhibit many characteristics that we associate with modern humans, such as a larger brain size, sophisticated tool use, and the ability to walk fully upright. Fossil evidence of Homo erectus has been found across Africa, Asia, and Europe, making it one of the first hominins to migrate out of Africa and spread across different continents. One of the most notable features of Homo erectus was its relatively large brain, with an average capacity of 900 to 1100 cubic centimeters, significantly larger than that of its predecessors like Homo habilis. This increase in brain size is believed to be linked to more complex behaviors, including the development of more advanced stone tools, known as Acheulean tools. These tools, which include hand axes and cleavers, were more refined and symmetrical than earlier tools, indicating a leap in cognitive abilities and motor skills. Homo erectus also displayed a significant shift in its physical structure, with a body more similar to modern humans, including longer legs and shorter arms. Homo erectus was well adapted to long-distance walking and running. This adaptation would have been crucial for hunting and scavenging, activities that likely required covering vast distances across the varied landscapes they inhabited. The species also showed evidence of early social behaviors and possibly even the use of fire, although the extent and regularity of fire use remain topics of debate among scientists. Fossils and archaeological sites suggest that Homo erectus lived in small, cooperative groups, which would have been beneficial for hunting large game and protecting against predators. Stegosaurus have two brains. The idea that Stegosaurus had two brain stems from an early interpretation of its anatomy that has since been reconsidered by paleontologists. This misconception originated in the 19th century when scientists studying the dinosaur fossils noticed an unusually large cavity in the spinal cord near the hip region. The brain of Stegosaurus, located in its skull, was notably small, about the size of a walnut or a lime, especially considering that the dinosaur could reach lengths of up to 30 feet. Given the small size of the brain relative to the large body, scientists speculated that the cavity in the hip region might have housed a second brain to help manage the dinosaur's movements, particularly its hindquarters and powerful spiked tail. However, as paleontology advanced, this theory was revisited and ultimately debunked. The cavity that was thought to contain a second brain is now believed to have housed a structure known as a glycogen body. This organ, present in some modern birds and reptiles, stores a glycogen, a form of energy reserve. Rather than functioning as a brain, The presence of a glycogen body would have been particularly useful for an animal as large as a Stegosaurus, providing energy to sustain its massive hindquarters. The notion of a second brain was intriguing because it seemed to offer an explanation for how a dinosaur with such a small brain could manage its large body. However, further research and more detailed anatomical studies have shown that Stegosaurus likely didn't need a second brain. Instead, its central nervous system, although not large, was sufficient for its needs, controlling basic functions and reflexes through the spinal cord, and possibly relying on the glycogen body for energy storage rather than additional neural processing. That wraps up part 2 of the Paleontology Iceberg. Leave a comment on what you thought, and stay tuned for part 3.